The night air hit Emily like a splash of cold water as she stepped away from the bar. The music and laughter faded behind her, leaving only the soft hum of the city streets. Her heart was still racing, not from the walk but from the weight of the moments inside. The glances exchanged, the words unspoken, and the tension she hadn't expected. Ethan had followed her outside, his presence quiet but insistent, a shadow she couldn't ignore. "Emily," he said softly, stopping a few feet away. His voice had that familiar tone, serious but gentle. She didn't look at him immediately, instead focusing on the streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement. She wanted to be anywhere but here, yet she couldn't move. "You shouldn't be out here," she said finally, turning her gaze toward him, but keeping it guarded. Her chest felt heavy, like she was carrying the memories of every time she had pushed her own feelings aside. "I know," he replied, his eyes searching hers like he was trying to find a place to stand between her past and his future. "But I had to make sure you were okay." She exhaled slowly, trying to calm the emotions swirling inside her. "I'm okay," she said, though the words felt hollow. She knew he could see through them, and part of her wanted him to. But there was also fear of what he might see. Fear of what might happen if they allowed the night to stretch any further. "You know, Lena's inside," he said quietly, a note of hesitation in his voice. Emily turned fully to face him, letting herself take in his expression. She saw honesty there, but also confusion, and maybe even a hint of longing. It was dangerous to notice that, and she did it anyway. "I figured," she said. "That's why we should stop pretending out here." He nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "Emily, I need to say something. I've been thinking all evening, maybe all week, and I realize that some things are clear only when you step back and look at them. I've made choices, good ones, but I can't ignore what was right in front of me either." Her heart skipped, but she stayed composed. "Ethan, you're getting married. You're choosing a life, not just a night." "I know." He said the words firm but not defensive. "And I love Rachel, truly. But tonight reminded me that love isn't about what could have been. It's about what you commit to and who you decide to share your life with. I don't want you thinking this night was anything else. You've never been an excuse." Emily's chest felt lighter, like a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying had been lifted. She wanted to believe him, to accept the sincerity in his voice, and for the first time that night, she did. "That's all I needed to hear," she said quietly, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over her before either of them could say more. Lena appeared at the doorway. Her presence was calm, but her gaze sharp, as if she had understood everything without needing explanation. She stopped when she saw Emily and Ethan together, a quiet tension filling the space between them. "I don't want to interrupt," Lena said gently, her voice carrying a sincerity that softened the night. "But I think it's time we all stop pretending. Ethan talks about the past like it still lives with him, and you will Milieu carry it quietly." Emily felt exposed, but there was no malice in Lena's words, only understanding. She nodded slowly, letting the truth of that recognition settle in. "I don't want drama," Lena continued. "I want honesty. That's all I ask." Ethan looked between them, processing everything. "I love Rachel," he said, clearly trying to communicate something deeper. "But tonight made me realize love isn't about regret. It's about choice. It's about now. And my choice is her. I need to honor that." Hearing him say it aloud, seeing the clarity in his eyes, Emily felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because the tension that had built between them was finally addressed. Sadness because she had allowed herself to hope, even briefly, for something that could never be hers. But there was also closure. And for the first time, that word didn't feel empty. "I understand," she said softly, letting the night swallow her words. "And I mean it, truly." There was a pause, and then Lena smiled. A real kind smile that seemed to acknowledge the honesty shared. "Thank you," she said, not to Emily or Ethan specifically, but to the moment itself for the truth. For the courage to face it. Emily took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in years. The city felt quieter now, the distant traffic and faint laughter from inside blending into a peaceful hum. She adjusted her coat and turned to walk home, each step deliberate, grounding her in the reality she had chosen to embrace. Her phone buzzed suddenly, pulling her attention. It was a message from Rachel. "Thank you for coming tonight. I know it meant more than you let on." Emily smiled faintly, tapping out her reply. Some nights are meant to end exactly where they do. She put the phone away and looked up at the skyline, the lights reflecting in her eyes. There was beauty in the way the city never slept, in the way life moved forward even after complicated nights like this one. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply breathe, to feel the quiet triumph of acceptance, and to understand that closure was not about forgetting. It was about acknowledging, letting go, and moving on. Emily walked through the streets, her footsteps echoing softly. The cool night air brushed against her cheeks, carrying with it the faint sense of coffee shops and rain-soaked pavement. Memories of the evening swirled in her mind, the laughter, the glances, the tension, and finally, the release. She had come to the bachelor party expecting distraction, and instead, she'd found clarity. Every step home reminded her that life was a series of choices, some obvious and some hidden in plain sight. She had chosen to come tonight, chosen to face her feelings, and chosen to leave with honesty intact. That choice mattered. By the time she reached her apartment, Emily felt a calm she hadn't known she needed. The city outside was alive, buzzing with possibilities, but inside she felt grounded. She set her keys on the counter and leaned against the door, letting herself smile. She had survived the pull of what-ifs, the ghost of old feelings, and the tension of a night that had promised temptation but delivered truth. For the first time in a long time, Emily allowed herself to feel grateful, not for the bachelor party, not for Ethan, but for the lesson it had brought. Life was not about reliving the past. It was about moving forward with honesty, with courage, and with a heart that remained open to whatever came next. And as she sat down by the window, looking out at the twinkling lights of Chicago, she knew she had gained something far more valuable than closure. She had gained herself back, and the certainty that the right choice, the honest choice, was always worth taking, no matter how complicated the night had seemed. The bachelor party had been an excuse, but the night had given her something better: understanding, acceptance, and the quiet promise that she could step into tomorrow without carrying the weight of yesterday. The night began with a message that should have meant nothing but didn't. Emily Carter was halfway through reheating leftover pasta in her small Chicago apartment when her phone buzzed on the counter. One glance at the screen was enough to make her chest tighten. Ethan's bachelor party is tonight. Last big night before the wedding. The microwave beeped, forgotten. Emily stood still, staring at the words like they could change if she waited long enough. She hadn't heard Ethan's name spoken so directly in months. Not since wedding plans had turned from casual talk into fixed dates and printed invitations. She told herself she was past this. She had built a quiet life around that belief. But the truth showed up anyway, uninvited. She picked up the phone, read the message again, then unlocked the screen. The sender was Rachel, her oldest friend, the woman Emily trusted more than anyone. The woman marrying the man Emily once loved in silence. Another message followed. "Come out with us. You don't hide anymore. One drink, please." Emily laughed softly, the sound empty in the quiet room. Rachel always believed people healed by stepping forward. Emily had learned to heal by stepping back. Still, the idea of staying home suddenly felt heavier than going out. She typed a short reply. "Okay, one drink." She didn't know it yet, but that decision would reopen doors she had spent years closing. An hour later, Emily stood in front of her bedroom mirror, surprised by her own reflection. She looked calm, confident even. Her dark hair fell neatly over her shoulders, her navy dress simple but elegant. Nothing about her outfit screamed regret or longing. That was the problem. She wasn't dressing for a bar. She was dressing for a memory. She pushed the thought away, grabbed her coat, and left before doubt could catch up. The bar was already loud when she arrived. Music thumped through the walls, laughter spilled onto the sidewalk, and warm light glowed through wide windows. It was the kind of place built for celebration, not reflection. Emily paused at the entrance, taking one slow breath. Then she stepped inside. She spotted the group near the back almost immediately. Familiar faces, raised glasses, wide smiles. And there, standing just left of center, was Ethan. Time did something strange in that moment. It slowed, stretched, then rushed back all at once. Ethan looked older than she remembered, but in a good way. More settled. His shoulders were broader, his smile more relaxed. He laughed as someone clapped him on the back, unaware that Emily was watching him from across the room. She felt something twist quietly inside her. Then he turned. Their eyes met. For a brief second, neither of them moved. The noise around them seemed to fade, like the world had leaned back to give them space. "Emily," he said, already stepping toward her. "I didn't know you were coming." She smiled, steady and polite. "Last-minute decision." "Glad," he said. And he meant it. That was the first crack in her defenses. The group welcomed her easily. Drinks were ordered, jokes flew fast. And someone brought up a story from college that made everyone groan and laugh at the same time. Emily found herself smiling more than she expected. The night moved quickly, like it was being pushed forward by energy alone. Emily stayed close to the edges at first, listening more than talking. But Ethan kept drifting near her, ever too close, never too far. Their conversations stayed safe. Work updates, mutual friends, places they used to go as a group, safe topics, dangerous history. "You still hate crowded places?" he asked, leaning closer so she could hear him. She shrugged. "I tolerate them better now." "Progress," he said, smiling. She caught herself smiling back. At one point, Rachel hugged her tightly. "I'm so happy you came," she said over the music. Emily hugged her back, guilt pressing softly against her ribs. "Me too." She hoped that was true. As the night went on, the group shifted and changed. Some people went outside to smoke, others moved closer to the music. Emily ended up at the bar, resting her elbows against the smooth wood, watching ice melt in her glass. Ethan joined her a moment later. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. "Just pacing myself." He nodded, studying her like he was trying to understand something unsaid. "It's good to see you." She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt the weight of everything they never became. "It's good to see you too," she said. That honesty surprised them both. For a second, the space between them felt smaller. Not because they moved closer, but because old walls remembered how to fall. Then a voice cut in. "Well, this is interesting." Emily turned. A woman stood beside them, holding a drink with easy confidence. She was striking without trying, her presence natural, her eyes sharp and curious. Ethan stiffened. "Oh, Millie, this is Lena," he said. "Lena, this is Emily." "The Emily," Lena said lightly, her gaze steady. Emily blinked. "Nice to meet you." Lena smiled, but there was a question behind it. "Likewise, I've heard about you." Emily felt the room tilt slightly. "You have?" Ethan laughed a little too fast. "I talk too much." "Sometimes," Lena said calmly. The three of them stood there, an unspoken triangle forming in the space between breaths. Emily suddenly understood something she hadn't considered before. This night wasn't just about celebration. It was about unfinished feelings, noticed by more than one person. Conversation resumed, but the energy had shifted. Emily felt more aware now, more careful. She noticed how Lena watched Ethan, how Ethan avoided certain glances, how Rachel trusted everything without question. The weight of that trust settled heavily on Emily's shoulders. She excused herself soon after, needing air more than company. Outside, the city felt cooler, calmer. Emily leaned against the brick wall, listening to distant traffic and muffled laughter from inside. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark window, older, stronger, but still human. She hadn't come to make things complicated. She had come to remind herself that she survived. Footsteps approached behind her. "Emily," Ethan said. She didn't turn right away. "You shouldn't be out here." "I know," he said quietly, "but I wanted to make sure you were okay." She faced him then. "I am." He hesitated, then nodded. "Lena's inside." "I figured," she said. Silence stretched between them, heavy but honest. "I didn't expect this," he said. "Neither did I," she replied. "But that doesn't mean it changes anything." He looked at her, searching her face for something she wouldn't give him. "You mattered," he said. She met his gaze, steady and clear. "You don't get to say that tonight." The words landed, firm but calm. Before he could respond, the door opened again. Lena stepped outside, stopping when she saw them together. For a moment, no one spoke. The night held its breath. And Emily knew whatever happened next would define how this story was remembered, not just by her, but by all of them.